Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back into the podcast. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. Guys, today I am going to be talking to you about bold predictions that I have for the rest of the fantasy football season. We are one day away from the full slate of Week 3 games, so I'm recording this Saturday night, before the full slate of Week 3 games. So obviously, the trajectory of some of these projections are subject to change based on what we see in Week 3. But regardless of what happens in Week 3, I am very confident that all of these things are going to happen. That's why I have them in my bold predictions, because they are legitimate predictions for the season. I'm aware that they're bold because they're not really consensus, but I think that these things are actually all going to come to light in the 2022 fantasy football season, and they're going to have a massive impact on the way the fantasy football season plays out and who takes home the championship this year in their fantasy league. So I'm going to start right here with the first thing on my list, and that is Joe Mixon and Saquon Barkley finishing top 5 at the running back position in fantasy football this year. Look, on the Joe Mixon side of the argument, we're looking at a guy who is leading the league in opportunity share at the running back position for his backfield. He's gotten an 88.1% opportunity share for the running backs in the Bengals backfield. He is a true bell cow back with no competition for touches. This is one of the most important things you can have in fantasy. On top of this, the Bengals have significantly bolstered up the offensive line. We know that they really made the offensive line better over the off season. And, obviously we haven't seen it so far, but they just had a bad matchup in Week 2. Micah Parsons was causing all kinds of havoc for the Bengals passing attack because he wasn't giving them any time to pass, because he's one of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL. I don't think a lot of people know this yet, but he was giving them fits. They're not going to have that many tough pass rushing matchups throughout the course of the season. Most days out of the season, most weeks, their offensive line is going to absolutely dominate, give Joe Burrow plenty of time to pass and drop back and create overall efficiency for the offense. They're going to give plenty of big holes for Joe Mixon to run through. I wouldn't be surprised if this dude was top 5 in the NFL as far as overall yards per carry efficiency this year. His efficiency numbers are a little bit down in the young season, but it's still very early. I still think that the efficiency numbers will be there for Joe Mixon. We know that at this current point, he is leading the league in carries. He is also leading the league in routes run from the running back position. This is mind-boggling to me. This is a running back who is not supposed to be a pass-catching running back. He's known for being a bell cow workhorse as far as pure rushing attempts, but he's never been a guy that gets a ton of passes. And now he's seeing by far more passing work than he has in his entire career. I pretty much called that after last season. I saw the increased passing work for Joe Mixon. I saw that they were leaning in a direction of making Joe Mixon a true elite pass-catching back. That is very much coming to be true this season. And so with all the passes that he's catching now, with the elite opportunity share that he's seen, with the efficiency that we know he can have being one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, and the touchdown upside that he can have being in this dynamic Bengals offense, I love him as finishing as a top 5 back this year. I would be surprised if he finished outside of that. And on the Saquon Barkley side of the argument, guys, Saquon Barkley has really impressed me in the young season. This is a guy who is first in breakaway runs, meaning runs of 15 yards or more. He's already got 5 rushes of 15 yards or more in the first 2 games. This is ridiculously impressive. He's got a 21.2% target share. This is second in the NFL among running backs. He's first in overall rushing yards, second in yards created, which is, yards created simply means, he has X amount of yards that he's supposed to run for because of what the block created. Say he was supposed to run for 3 yards, but he ran for 8. That means that he has 5 yards created that he created on his own after first contact. And so he's leading the league in yards created with 194. That means a vast majority of his yardage are yards that he created all on his own. We know that Saquon is notorious for having this ability because he is arguably still the most talented running back in the NFL. I think that Nick Chubb is making a strong case for that now, but Saquon Barkley might have the most pure raw talent at the running back position in the entire NFL. So the fact that he creates a ton of yards all on his own is no big surprise. We know that he has tremendous big play ability, and he is second in evaded tackles with 18 evaded tackles on the early season. These are all very impressive statistics, and considering the fact that he's 2 years removed from his major injury to his ACL, I think that this guy can absolutely light the league on fire this year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was the running back 1 in fantasy. And I think that him and Joe Mixon are going to both finish in the top 5 at the running back position. Next bold prediction on my list is Josh Allen repeating as the quarterback one in fantasy. I know that this is an incredibly hard thing to do, and some people might think that it's a bold prediction because of that. Some people might not think it's a bold prediction because Josh Allen is just such an elite talent, and they probably think he's for sure going to repeat as the quarterback one. But considering the fact that we've seen guys like Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes come into the league and just absolutely light it up in their first or second season in the league, and then come back the next year and not repeat as the quarterback one, it just shows how hard of a thing this is to do. It's incredibly hard to repeat as the quarterback one, but I think that Josh Allen can do it. Look, this guy takes care of the football. He is 31st in the league in interceptable passes. He's only thrown one interceptable pass through 2 games. He is first in true passer rating with a 134-plus pure passer rating and an 87.1 quarterback rating. This is also first in the league. This is a guy who has been far and away the best quarterback in the entire NFL in the early season. He's got what I think is a top 3 most talented wide receiver in the entire NFL in Stephon Diggs to move the ball, to throw the ball to. We know that he has some of the best rushing upside right up there with Lamar Jackson in the entire NFL, along with his rocket arm, which allows him to sling the ball 70 yards at will. This dude is going to repeat as the quarterback one. I have very good reason to believe this is going to happen. I think that his competition would be, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, but I just don't think that these guys possess the true dual threat that Josh Allen does. Lamar Jackson is not nearly as good of a passer as Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes doesn't have the legs that Josh Allen has. So the dual threat that this guy possesses at the quarterback position is going to propel him into being the quarterback one for a second season in a row in fantasy. And I can't wait to watch more of the Josh Allen show this year. It's extremely entertaining. Next prediction on my list is the Chargers being the highest scoring NFL offense this year. I know it's been a slow start for the Chargers in the young season, but look, we've got Justin Herbert, one of the most elite quarterbacks in the NFL. He is right up there with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. As far as just pure elite quarterback talent, this guy is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He didn't have Keenan Allen in week 2, and the offense was still able to at least move the ball. Now, they got off to a little bit of, they were behind in the game, so they were forced to pass the ball, right? But this is going to be a pass-happy attack all season long. They love feeding Austin Eckler out of the backfield, lining him up as a wide receiver. We know that Keenan Allen is a ridiculous target hog that has the true potential to average more than 10 targets a game from a season-long standpoint, which is completely ridiculous. We've got the alpha male downfield threat in Mike Williams, the 6'4" guy who could run a 4.5 and run right past people, run over people, make contested catches. This offense has all the weapons in the world. We have a player in the offense in Austin Eckler who led the league in touchdowns this year. We know that this team scores a ridiculous amount of touchdowns and can put a ton of points on the board. I recommend stacking as many Chargers offensive players on your fantasy team as possible this year because they are that good of an offense. And even though they've been off to a little bit of a slow start, Keenan Allen is coming back soon. Mike Williams is healthy. Justin Herbert is still making his way onto the field. So I think that this is going to be the best offense in the NFL this year. Now, if Justin Herbert's rib injury that he had from last week turns out to be a little bit more serious, that would obviously completely and utterly change the trajectory of this projection that I have here. But as long as he's able to play a full healthy season, I think this offense is even going to outscore the Buffalo Bills this year. I really do. I think it's that good of an offense, loaded with a ridiculous amount of offensive weapons, and they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL despite their slow start. And you want to stack as many offensive players on the Chargers roster as you possibly can. Next on my list is I think that, and this is crazy, right? I think that 3 wide receivers are going to finish as top 7 overall players in fantasy this year. I mean, we've seen ridiculous production in the early season from Justin Jefferson, although he busted week 2, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp. These guys are sort of changing the outlook of fantasy football and making the case that the wide receiver position could be more important than the running back position. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a robust RB guy. I'm not going to have that argument. I still think that running back is hands down the most important position in fantasy football, but these wide receivers are certainly making a case for wide receivers being more important than running backs. And I honestly think that 3 wide receivers are going to be top 7 overall players in fantasy this year. You could probably take a guess as to who I think they're going to be. I really don't even have to say it, but Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Stephon Diggs, I think that they are all going to be top 7 players overall in fantasy football. They're going to be some of the biggest difference-making players in the league. I highly doubt that you could trade for any of these guys at this point. They're just so good that I really don't think that they're attainable whatsoever in the trade market. You'd have to give up something incredibly ridiculous to get any one of these guys on your team. But if you are lucky enough to have them, if you were savvy enough to take one of these wide receivers in the first round, or Stephon Diggs in the first half or mid part of the second round of the draft, you are very fortunate. These guys are going to absolutely explode this season. And I think that these 3 guys are going to finish as top 7 overall players in fantasy this year. We've seen it in the young season. Stephon Diggs is currently the wide receiver 1. Cooper Kupp is a wide receiver 1 in PPR leagues. Stephon Diggs is the number 1 wide receiver in standard leagues. Either way, both these guys are absolutely going off. Justin Jefferson had a bust in week 2, but we know that this guy possesses one of the highest weekly ceilings in fantasy, one of the sickest 4-ceiling combinations we've ever seen at the wide receiver position. He's being absolutely force-fed the ball, as he will continue to be all season long, and I think the overall efficiency of this offense will be better in most weeks than we saw them in week 2. So you can expect Justin Jefferson to also be a top 7 overall player in fantasy this year. These wide receivers are an incredible show, and it's very fun to watch. Next and final thing that I have here on my list is Darren Waller being the tight end 1 in fantasy. Now, if you've been watching my podcast all through the offseason and through the early part of this season, I've been calling this the whole way since pretty much March. Darren Waller is going to be the tight end 1 in fantasy. Travis Kelce is old, so Travis Kelce is not the player that he used to be. I hate to say it. Now, don't get me wrong. He's still immensely talented. He's still the number 1 target hog in a Kansas City Chiefs, Pat Mahomes-led offense. And if he finished as the tight end 1, I guess I wouldn't be all that surprised. But if I was a betting man, I would bet on Darren Waller finishing ahead of Travis Kelce. I would bet on him finishing ahead of Mark Andrews, just due to the fact that I think that the Raiders are, from a season-long standpoint, going to be a better offense than the Baltimore Ravens. So I think that he's going to be better than Mark Andrews this year. This is a guy who is 3rd in the league in air yards with 126. So we know that he's getting targeted downfield in the early season. He's 2nd in red zone targets. He's already seen 3 red zone targets. We know that red zone targets are hands down the most important thing you can possibly have in the NFL, in fantasy football, if you're a pass catcher. Red zone targets are hands down the most valuable thing you could possibly get, because it creates touchdown scoring opportunities. And, this is a guy who is, he has immense talent. He's 6'6", 250 plus pounds. He's an absolute matchup problem. In his entire career, he has been treated as, just a wide receiver, basically, because, he hasn't had that wide receiver in his offense to help take defensive attention off of him. He now has that in Davante Adams. Davante Adams was arguably the most talented wide receiver in the entire NFL. So, most of the defensive attention this season is going to be on Davante Adams. This is going to leave Darren Waller open to absolutely tear it up in this offense. He's seen only 14 targets through 2 weeks. Look for this number to get bumped up significantly. He's only seen a 19% target share. This is also going to be increased significantly, but with seeing only a 19% team target share, he's still 2nd in the entire NFL in red zone targets. Imagine how many red zone targets this guy's going to see when his target share becomes more of what his true target share is going to be, which is more like 22 or 23%. Okay, he hands down has a very good chance of leading the NFL in red zone targets at the tight end position this year. We know that he has the ability to beat pretty much anyone in a one-on-one situation. This guy is one of the most talented tight ends in the league, and he is going to finish as a tight end 1 this year. All right, guys, I really do appreciate you tuning into the video today. Again, I filmed this, Saturday night, the night before the full slate of Week 3 games. So some of these things might be subject to change, but despite what we see in Week 3, I have very good reason to believe that all of these things are going to happen, and they're going to make huge differences in the fantasy season. So I really do appreciate you tuning into the video today, guys, and I will catch you later.